Allegra, Stephen, thanks so much for joining us. We're going to jump right into it. We're here to talk about gender equality as a foundation for achieving the SDGs. But much remains to be done, with some gains sadly rolling back in many countries. How are your UN country team supporting governments and the people of Kenya and Costa Rica to promote women's leadership to achieve gender equality by 2030? And what challenges are you facing, and what are some of the solutions that you're seeing?
Well, you're right that gender equality is absolutely foundational to the Sustainable Development Goals. Yet Kenya is not unique. We find many countries, my own, Ireland, where the overall development performance, gender equality is lagging behind. So in a country like Kenya, you've got 1 in 3 women who will have experienced gender-based violence in their life. 1 in 5 teenage girls is pregnant at some point between 15 and 19. So we've got to work together to address that. Kenya government is leading hard on this. What we're trying to do is to come together as a UN family in a way that we never have before. So we did so around the Kenyan elections to try and promote more representation of women at the polls and in the parliament. And I think we saw already some success from that. We're also coming together around a joint program on combating gender-based violence, GBV, as we call it. So that's really about 2 things. One is really working hard on further strengthening the policy and the legislative framework for all of that. It's already strong, but we need to make it stronger still. And then you've got to bring both prevention and response much closer to the women and girls who are affected. And that's particularly in urban, informal settings. Those are growing super fast in Kenya. And amongst at-risk populations, migrants and refugees. Kenya is a massive host country for both of those. So we have to come together like we never have before to be able to try and do something about the gender-based violence problem at scale.
Scale is such an interesting word. Is that something that you're also thinking about, Allegra? How to bring these solutions?
No, first of all, sharing the panic or the fear about what we're seeing, which is a global regression on this issue. An issue that we've worked on so much and so hard, and to see that we still don't have a recognition of the need to have gender equality across the world. We're seeing this in my region, in Central America. And so I think one of the things we've been working very hard on as a UN system is giving women voices. And we've run studies on hate speech, because what we're seeing is that there's a systematic design in silencing women's voices, and especially in silencing women in power. Women, whether they're in politics or in business, they are the targets of the highest levels of hate speech and online digital violence. And so one of the things we've been working on is how do we create a safe environment so that women can speak, women can lead. And in our cooperation framework, actually, I'm very proud to say that we have a cooperation framework that is officially feminist. And we made a very big deal of calling it a feminist cooperation framework, because feminism has become a scary word. And so for us, it was very important politically to say this out loud and say it proud. Yes, we have a feminist cooperation framework. So we have to also fight back this criminalization of words like gender equality or feminism, and go back to saying this is something we all need and that we should all want.
So that takes us to, you can't do this alone. You both spoke about coming together. What does that mean? Who do you need to bring at the table? Who are your partners?
Literally everyone. And of course, we tend to have these conversations with like-minded, and we've realized that there's a real limit to that. I'd like to also often go back to the He for She campaign that, that I think was so powerful in that voice to say, we need everyone to make this happen, and we definitely need the non-women voices. We also need to recognize that women, it includes very many different kind of women, and we need to make sure that there is a coalition among women. And I think one of the things we've also found, and I think as an RC, I've been leading on this, is the value of gender equality. So for example, speaking to a room of business people and saying, what are you missing out when you don't have women in your boardrooms? Or, in education, in employment, in any sector of life, what does it mean when more than 50% of your population is not contributing? Everyone is affected. So this makes sense to everyone.
Does what Allegra say echo with you?
Absolutely. I mean, sustainable development is inclusive development, right? So if you're leaving actually 51% of your population out of the equation, it's not just unjust, it's also not going to work, right? And so that's a message that, that one has to take around the world to every country. In Kenya, I think there's a real understanding of that. The bottom-up economic transformation agenda that Kenya has, we joke, but we mean it sincerely, that that's the Swahili way of talking about leave no one behind. And for us, leave no one behind, so within our cooperation framework, we have a leave no one behind central focus. And one of the 4 constituencies most at risk of being left behind is Kenya's women and girls. Just to turn to the question of partnership then, well, so just as Allegra has said, bringing all of the UN energies together, but that's not going to be enough. So we're trying also to create multi-stakeholder partnerships. I want to give you a flavor quickly of just one. Very interesting, we launched just recently what we believe to be the first development impact bond, and I'll explain what that is, for adolescent sexual and reproductive health services. A DIB, a development impact bond, is this innovative way of getting really private sector investment into a development space that has previously been public sector. And what it allows you to do, you bring the private sector in, then you can make it performance-based. So this is about an app that's going to reach at maximum about 500,000 Kenyan girls to help them access contraceptive services, HIV prevention services. And I won't go into the technical detail of how a DIB works, but essentially there's an app that then allows the client, the girls, to give their feedback on how the services are. And then there is outpayment on the basis of whether you met the mark or not. So it's a very interesting way of bringing new actors into this space, and we need that, to go back to your point about scale.
Innovation and partnership. I think 2 really interesting things to take us to scale. Thank you both so very much. Before we leave, I'm going to ask each of you one word for how you're feeling about gender equality and women's leadership.
Imperative.
Absolutely committed. That's 2, but
we'll take
2
it.
critical ones.
Thank you so much.
Very welcome.